Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for being here. I had a bit of a hiccup today. I was on the East Coast yesterday when I scheduled this live session. So I accidentally scheduled it for 6 a.m. Pacific time, not 9 a.m. Pacific time. So a couple hiccups there. People may have tried to jump on earlier when they saw that time, and obviously I wasn't here, and I apologize for that. And then because I had to change it, I also had to drop off of LinkedIn, which means we may not really have an audience today. So I might just be talking to myself for a little bit, and obviously if I made that mistake and we don't have an audience today, that's okay. But I definitely made a bunch of mistakes with the scheduling, and I just didn't have it together today. So if it does end up not really working out today's live session because of that mistake, I'm happy to just come back next week if we don't have an engaged audience today. So again, if you're just coming into the stream, I had a little bit of a hiccup with the scheduling. I scheduled it on the East Coast, and so we're coming in West Coast time, and I didn't catch that error until about 10 minutes ago. So again, we'll just see what happens in the live stream today. But just with the timing hiccup that I had today, we'll see how engaged the audience is. So the last couple of weeks I have taken off from doing long form videos, and I will be back to that next week. And I'm going to throw out some shorts as well this week. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. We're really excited with what's going on with the app. If you haven't checked out our app, we have introduced Interview Academy, which means it just makes the app more sticky because we're teaching you how to interview. And so it's like really a mini course within the app. We also reduced our app prices. So app.practiceinterviews.com. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, please do. Still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy, which is mostly LinkedIn and resume work, but also more just overall strategy work as well. So as we warm into the session today, I know some people are coming in, and again, I had a bit of a timing hiccup. I said it on the East Coast. I was on the East Coast yesterday and now West Coast. So if we do have a slow audience today, I had to remove it from LinkedIn. And again, just with the timing hiccup, we'll see how engaged the audience is. So as you're warming into this session, please, where are you visiting from? If you like, say hello. Let me know that you can see and hear me. And we'll kind of dive into talking a little bit about summer hiring trends while we're waiting for comments to come in. And so I'm just clicking on this button here right now. Okay, that's interesting. They've offered a new feature. Hey, KB, thanks for being here. Yeah, I think today is going to be a really weird session. I just had such a hiccup with the scheduling today that I apologize. I don't even know if we're going to really have a session today because I just made mistakes on the timing, but I'm here to hang out with the audience, ask questions, and information and feedback comes in. I'm happy to answer anything. And as always with these live sessions, and as you engage with these platforms, it's kind of like everything's on the table. Don't be shy to ask questions about anything. Content creators, we set up these live sessions to be as informative as possible and as helpful as possible. So I'm here to answer any questions. And again, just anybody who's coming into the live stream, I know I'm getting super repetitive, but it's super early on. I had a major hiccup at the time. I set the wrong time because I was on the East Coast. So we will only be here on YouTube, not on LinkedIn. So we lost our LinkedIn audience, and we maybe lost a couple of other people because they hopped on earlier. I could actually see that people did. So I apologize for that. So let's talk a little bit about summer hiring trends as people are coming in, and please, any and all questions are welcome. What's coming up in the summer is, I think, as we head into the summer, and especially summer into fall, into winter, we are going to see, some of the trends that are happening are we're seeing maybe a little bit of a reduction in roles at the junior level for software engineers. That's a major summer hiring trend. So what we would typically see in a normal summer hiring session is like many more internships for junior engineers, maybe just more internships in general. But definitely on the engineering side, the software engineering side, that summer hiring trend is getting a little bit slower. We are also seeing with return to office, right? We're seeing that some people are choosing not to go back to the office, which is making the job market a little more competitive. It's a little more challenging as we get these really strong candidates into the market. It's just we're seeing a lot more, and this is just I'm hearing from my friends in the industry, and I don't think anybody's surprised. If it was 500 applications before, now it's 3,000 applications. So the competition is getting pretty fierce out there. I think we're also going to start to see the first waves this summer and as we head into the fall of more job removal because of automation. And so one of the areas that I just read an article on Business Insider is that some of the aspects of automation are removing some of middle management, right? Because it can become more streamlined. Senior leaders can be more effective with automation. So that's probably another trend that we're going to see coming up as well. I'm just going to dive in to some of the comments that have come in before, and let's dive into talking through these summer hiring trends. What are you seeing on your end? Are you seeing that you're just not getting any movement? Are you seeing more job opportunities, less job opportunities? Let's get the pulse from the audience, please. Hey KB, thanks for being here. Thanks, Liz. I'll definitely check out your note after this. How's it going from Seattle? Amazing. David, thanks for being here as always. Okay, so I have a recruiter call tomorrow for a new role. Just sharing good news, which is amazing. I think you've prepped us so well for this that I do not have any questions, just excited. And let's just talk about a couple. We're really slow, right? So let's talk about a couple best practices for that recruiter call. You want to gather as much information as you can in that call as possible. But the number one item with that call is, please, if you do anything, just make sure your number one item is you show up on time and you are present and listening. Recruiters like to work with people who show up on time, right, and have good conversations. And I know this is as basic as it gets, but I just would have people, I would have candidates. I know this sounds crazy, but I'd have candidates ghost my recruiter call at Google. And then like, if they missed it, they just say, oh yeah, you're just a recruiter. Like it's not really important. So I just missed it because I was busy and let's talk again. I'm not going to work as hard for you as the recruiter if we do that. So obviously, Liz, you know all these things, show up on time, but the questions, like we really want to uncover as much as we possibly can. But how do we do that? It's all about prefacing, right? We need to set the tone and set expectations. So I would always preface with my recruiter, I have a ton of questions. Please cut me off at any time. We want to understand why the position's open, how long the position is open. We want to understand to the extent they'll share a little bit about the competition. We want to understand a little bit about our interviewers, what types of questions they ask, what are the questions they ask. I mean, we can really poke at the recruiter, but if you're going to ask a lot of questions, also it's really important to just check in and say, hey, I know I just asked 5 questions. Can I ask a few more? Just so you create that nice back and forth. It's pretty rare that the recruiter screen is very rigid or robust. Usually it's just they're checking on communication skills and background alignment, but some recruiters will challenge you. Just breathe, slow down, be gracious and kind. And I know for the super, super challenging roles that I had at Google where we just struggled to find the right candidates, I would just go to the hiring manager and I'd say, hey, just give me 3 questions that I can ask candidates that if they can't answer all 3 of those questions, we need to move on. And I would set that tone in that conversation. I'd say to candidate Jane, I'd say, hey, Jane, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. These are questions that you need to be able to answer based on my hiring manager discussions. And if you can, it will be a stopping point. And it was just kind of to set the tone like, hey, these are 3 areas that we just need a little bit more information. And that's something that I recommend all recruiters do, although I don't believe that's happening very often. I'm a PGM. I have a technical program manager interview at Google this Friday. I have my stories ready to go, but the recruiter emphasized it'll focus on the technical assessment. Technical program. So yeah, I'd want to know a little bit more about, uh, to the extent that you want to share, like what is the focus of the technical focus of the role? And then technical assessment, usually the technical questions, especially the technical questions that are coming in more of an RRK interview, are they're very role specific and should be in your wheelhouse. I just think with technical questions, the biggest area that I always recommend is I treat technical questions kind of like a hypothetical question. A common one that I always reference is, how does Netflix work in the cloud? It's like, well, I could just answer that question. Or I could say, well, how does Netflix work in the cloud from a user perspective, from a technical perspective, from a business perspective? It's too broad. And so whenever you get those technical assessment questions, I would just be trying to narrow the focus, because your interviewer, Sue, might say, yeah, of course, from a user perspective, but you wouldn't have known that unless you asked that question. It can also be really helpful with a technical question, just to follow CFAS. Ask a few questions to figure out the focus. Then you present your framework to say, okay, if we're focused on users, here are 3 specific areas we might want to focus in on. I'm going to make some assumptions and solve from a technical perspective. That may not be necessary, but it's a tip and trick that some of my clients have seen work really, really well. You're seeing fewer opportunities for your chosen role. Okay, Liz, thanks for that context. I think that's just going to be a part of it. I think we're just going to see less roles, right? And I think it's challenging to talk about it because it seems negative, where the goal is just to present the reality and then try and connect back to that reality, which is, I think, for the foreseeable future, maybe in perpetuity, we're just going to see less jobs. Automation will remove jobs. We need to just continue to have this conversation. And the more we insulate ourselves by learning how to utilize tools, becoming more efficient, more effective, it's going to be one of the major reasons why companies keep us. And it's something also, it's really important to talk about. If I were interviewing anybody today to come work for me, I'd want to understand how they're leveraging AI to make them more efficient. Because if they said, "Oh, like I've never used AI before," it would instantly stop the conversation for me, because I'd find that they'd probably be spending way too much time doing really simple tasks that AI can now handle for us. I feel like I'm seeing less new jobs or the same jobs posted over and over again. Yeah, David, I'm kind of getting that pulse too. I think also it's just something to talk that we should be talking about, right? With an employer based job market where the employers have all the advantage now, like the employees had the advantage for a long time through COVID. People had their choice of jobs. They could work remote. It was very easy. But with an employer focused job market, well, what does that look like moving forward? Well, they can be pickier. And so, yeah, I think we're seeing that companies are doing that. And I'm seeing, just him hearing from my clients, it's taking longer to make decisions. It's like, okay, we'll get back to you. Things are happening. And it's like, okay, it just means they're probably adding more and more candidates, which, by the way, doesn't help. There's a law of diminishing returns. You can't have 20 or 30 or 40 good candidates, because then they'll struggle to make decisions. So I think that's something that's happening quite a bit right now as well. But yeah, I feel like it's less jobs and similar jobs being posted over and over again. I agree. Okay, so just a quick reference to what Liz is talking about. So when having a interview with a recruiter, I believe you're right. If you just go to my YouTube page on desktop and you hit that search button and it says interview with a recruiter, I think I in the YouTube description, I probably posted like 30 questions you can ask them. And some of them are ridiculous, and you always want to adapt and adjust to your audience, of course, but they'll be helpful. Sometimes we're just not thinking about things. And sometimes within this recruiter conversation, I know we're spending a lot of time here, but it's important. I'm going to ask them, what types of questions do they ask? What areas do they like to focus in on? Some recruiters will tell you. It's like, wow, we can get real insight into the types of questions we're going to be asked and what they're going to focus on. The recruiter might say, of course, I can't give you that information. Of course, I just wanted to get a more general feel, right? So we can poke at that a little bit. And yeah, it works. It's surprising. So thanks for that. Yeah, I have to. Yes, I think that video is probably a few years old. I can't remember anymore. It's been too many videos. Agree with Liz. If you watch Jeff videos on a regular basis, you don't need preparation. Cheers for all the good work. Love from Sydney. Amazing to have you on from Sydney. Now, I would say that the videos are part of your preparation process, right? Like I still definitely want you to prepare on your own, and get it down. Get your answers down in a Google Doc or whatever kind of online tool you like to use. Run them through AI. Like do all the things you can to optimize in your prep, and then obviously use tools like app.practice interviews or use other AI tools. And of course, AI tools are fantastic, but I still think there's a huge benefit to practicing with other humans as well. Everything is about coupling, doubling down, and being really repetitive. So preparation is all about doing things and doing them over and over and over again. If you've been here, you can see how repetitive I am. I mean, it's because we get some of the same questions, of course, but repetition is key. And a great way to think about repetition is, I'd like to reference basketball because I'm a basketball player. I love playing, I love watching. And those NBA players have probably shot a million free throws, right? And so that's repetition. That's the hand repetition of just shooting free throw after free throw. And you get in that routine, you get in that movement, and same thing with the interviews. I hope you don't have to practice a million questions, but I would say just prep is everything, and you can always be preparing more. As I'm applying vigorously, is speed to application submission the better approach, or should I tailor every resume to the position? This is a big one. So there's multiple things I want to just uncover here. So I don't like applying. I mean, I don't recommend it. I know that people are going to do it. And it's not to say don't apply, but applying vigorously, like, it's not my favorite thing. Now that we shouldn't not apply because it will help us get in front of roles. I think less is more. So yes, I do think you should be catering your resume, but it's just the summary section. You should just be throwing your current resume and the job description into GPT or your preferred LLM and just saying, create 7 summary bullets, short, sweet, based on the job description in my resume. And then you'll narrow that down to 3 to 5. So I just change out the summary section by job, which if you use an AI tool, that takes about 3 minutes. And of course, you shouldn't be applying to 50 or 100 jobs a day. It's too much. Should really narrow your focus if you can. Okay, David, I also feel like communication internally at companies is poor. Seems like oftentimes the hiring team and the HR recruiter are not on the same page. Yeah, it's just true. It's true. And I think part of it is that I really feel as though one of the missing pieces of the puzzle is recruiters just aren't getting the training they need, because there's really just basic training that's super helpful. And then it's not just about training, and we all kind of need this, right? So it's training, and then it's like mandatory follow-up training to say, hey, have you been taking these 10 steps? Because if you're missing any of these 10 steps, you're not doing your job, right? And so it's not just the initial training, it's the follow-up trainings, it's the extreme focus on feedback. Feedback would be really helpful because, like, there should be no disconnect between the HR team and the hiring team. Like that should be a very, very strong partnership. And if that doesn't exist, there's definitely a problem. Agreed. Hey, Ted. Hey, Jeff. I just finished the Loop interview with Google on a specific role, data center technical ops manager. Okay. And the recruiter told me I have to wait until the other candidate finishes their last interview this week, and the result will come back early next week. Okay. Just wonder if it's normal to wait for other candidates, and does that hint that the other candidate is preferred? Okay, so I actually had this conversation via email with a client this morning. If they're saying like we got to wait on other candidates, that means they like you. If they didn't like you, they just instantly reject. So often it's kind of this human need to validate and validate through multiple interviews, multiple candidates. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think if we find a great candidate, we should just move on. Always searching for something better isn't always a great path in a competitive job market. But again, it's an employer-based market. But no, it definitely does not mean they're preferred. It just means they want to see this other candidate through the process. So please keep us posted and good luck. Come back next week and let us know what's going on. A few things that I noticed that are challenging in this market. JDs do not match the actual day-to-day. Job descriptions are very broad and limited. They do not match actual duties very well. Yeah, and I think so, Liz, that's a good opportunity. Again, let's go back to that recruiter conversation. Are we getting aligned with the recruiter on like, hey, I see 10 responsibilities here. What are the top 3 according to the hiring manager? Or like, what do you think based on your experience are the top 3? Like really trying to narrow it down and then saying like, okay, I found these 2 bullets and they seem pretty vague. Can you dive into those in a little bit more detail and just see if they can? I find that job descriptions are frustrating for, well, we probably all see this for many reasons, but lack of detail. And then, one of my biggest critiques is that there's just way too many responsibilities. It's like you're asking me to do 3 jobs and it's crazy. For the technical PGM interview, it's an RRK with the HM. It drives optimization and automation within an end-to-end supply chain ops for third-party hardware in the cloud, supply chain ops role. Yeah, so when I see a TPM role that's related to supply chain, we're talking about hardware in the cloud. So like that's going to be that technical component, hardware and how it connects to the cloud, right? And so supply chain technical is very, very domain specific. So I don't really call that technical, but there'll be TPM roles that are just domain specific. Obviously, understanding hardware is technical, but like your technical assessments for this type of role is your goal is to think holistically. Like if we just get so fixated on that technical component, relate it back to supply chain ops. And you're going to have lots of program managers who will work more on the generic supply chain programs, et cetera. But just be thinking through that. I don't know if that specific feedback is helpful. Let me know if you have some questions. I've seen advice to connect with the HM early in the negotiation process to get them on your side before discussing numbers. And I've heard to speak to them as an escalation. Your thoughts and response? I would say it depends, right? It depends on the organization you're working with. Big companies, I would say I would shy away from that unless that's something that the hiring manager offered early on. Smaller companies, it can be beneficial, but it just depends, right? Like, if you're negotiating at a company like Google, the hiring manager is not really the decision maker. The compensation team's the decision maker. The hiring manager only comes in when we want to escalate. So, like, escalations are also a big deal. You need to understand basically when it's appropriate to escalate and when it's not appropriate to escalate. And so, usually, escalation means there's something like pretty overwhelming in your case that would require an escalation. Like you're a purple unicorn, or like you're a returning employee and they're trying to give you 30% less than when you were there before, or there's some sort of very unique skill that nobody else in the world or very few people in the world have, or the comp is so far off from your current earnings or your competing offers, or there's some sort of big vest coming up, or your company's going to IPO or something. But just in general, escalating is not my recommendation. There has to be something there, and I do kind of push for escalations as a reference point, but it's something we need to be very careful of. If you have more questions, let me know. I've seen PGM roles at companies where they may have 50 plus openings, but I don't believe they're real. It may be collecting resumes. Had another Google job where I was told no opening was tied to it. Yeah, so I think what they're doing is, well, I know what they're doing, and they've done this historically, is a lot of companies will say, like David, for example, program manager, and then they'll put you into the process, and then they'll try and find a role for you on the back end. So I think they have roles, but they're trying to keep it more generic so they can fit people into whatever role they see as best. But that also creates a lot of funkiness from like a team match perspective or actually finding a job. And I don't know that these companies, like a lot of the big companies, just have time to like build pipeline. Um, but I'm just hearing some additional stories about a lot more job posts these days, just trying to data gather and stack candidates for the future. And again, because it's an employer based market, and I hate saying it, but they're saying it, so I'm saying it. Um, it's making things pretty tricky. I agree. Not my favorite strategy for organizations. I found that the most interesting leads are coming from reposts on LinkedIn. It's as if you're a part of the person's extended network. You'll find the opportunity if you haven't gotten the chance. Yeah, occasionally I see reposting on LinkedIn. It's just like it becomes pretty crazy, um, just because there's so many people on LinkedIn, and then people will be like, "I have an opening on LinkedIn," and yeah, I don't even know if that's going back to what David said. Like when a recruiter does that, they know they're just going to get crushed. So um, if they're reposting opportunities, either they're just trying to date together or they can't find the right person. But when I see it on LinkedIn, I just think that they're going to get crushed. Yeah. Do your grades at a university matter when it comes to job applications? For some organizations, yeah. Some care, some don't care. Um, and I wouldn't worry too much about it, especially if you're Hunter, if you're past that point, or like your grades are what they are. Like I wouldn't get too fixated on that. I think it should become less and less important moving forward, but it just depends on the organization. Some are going to care about it, some are not going to care about it. Thanks, Jeff. On negotiation, I've heard to speak with the hiring manager. Oh, okay. We covered that one. I'm currently a project manager with Apple Music. Awesome. I want another part of the business, not sure which, and relocate companies. Any tips on how to navigate this? Yeah. So, um, if you're within the organization, the obviously the best thing to do is you want to stay with Apple, right? Get that relocation into that new destination, and even if that means you have to stay with Apple Music, right? You have to kind of prioritize, okay, what's the best opportunity for relocation? Then you definitely want to keep it within the same organization. That's going to be really important because a company like Apple is going to be really supportive and give you all the resources to relocate. And then going into a different position, maybe it's a like or similar position, and then you work your way away from project management, but something in the project management space is probably going to be very likely for you to be able to make that relo. It doesn't have to be within Apple Music, but yeah, I just recommend socializing, looking at the opportunities to the extent that you feel comfortable and you have a supportive hiring manager, letting them know you're interested in relo. But obviously, in this job market, we got to tread lightly. But the best opportunity is going to be to stay with the organization, relo, even if it's a like or similar job that you're not like 100% excited about. If relo is your primary, you focus there. Now, if job is your primary, then you might want to stay in your home country. Obviously, a big decision. Seems like companies are asking for much more. I recorded myself answering 10 questions over cam, followed by multiple games, cognitive tests, math, numbers, and a long survey, all before human contact. And this will be the future state, David. Yeah, this is going to be our future state. You have to do much more up front before they even speak to you, just because of the sheer volume of applications. Here's what I think is going to happen really soon. It's going to be very, very common for people to create AI agents. And so you have AI agent David and you have AI agent Sue, hiring manager, and they're talking to each other and assessing whether there's a fit there. And then if there is a fit there, you can go into conversation. So building out a robust AI agent might be something that we're all doing in the very, very near future. And that could make hiring much better and much more streamlined. But right now, I'm hearing it. Way more upfront assessments, tests, all these things. Just remember, with any upfront assessment or test, if it's a test or let's talk more an assignment to solve a current business challenge that organization has, don't do it. They're asking you to actually do free work for them. If it's something random and removed from the organization, that's them actually trying to test whether you're skilled for the role. So it's an important distinction. Since it's an employer's market now, is total compensation still competitive? It is, and it's going down. I mean, this is the first time that I've seen across the board, and I can say that like these total compensations are not as good as they were in the past, and that's really difficult because things are officially more expensive today than they've ever been, right? And so, I mean, obviously, if you've been here before, starting in March, Google did a major reduction in their equity packages. I mean, I've seen as much as, I've just seen crazy, crazy reductions. Some have been like pretty tame, and for other roles, they've been significant. The sales roles, especially for Google, for example, I've seen major reductions in their equity packages. And while people would argue with this, I would say that Meta and Amazon, their offers, especially from an equity standpoint over the last 2 or 3 years, have not been as good. Haven't seen as much of that from Apple. Microsoft has always kind of been in the lower tier of the FAANG companies for pay, but employer-based market means their offers need to be less competitive, and that's what I'm seeing. I still think if we're talking big tech, they're still very, very good and very competitive, but they're definitely not quite as good as they used to be. Is getting a certificate worthwhile doing? Of course, industry specific, for example, AWS, cloud practitioner. So I like knowledge. So I'm always going to recommend licenses and certifications if you think it will help. And bringing that context in, especially when you go into hypothetical job interviews and you can bring in more product specific information, it's always going to be really, really helpful. Can I assume that resources let go from Microsoft lately will be primarily considered for most available jobs at one of the big FAANG? I think that some people make the assumption that like these big tech employees are going to be more sought after than other employees. And it's like, well, there's some credibility to working for these large companies, and we could argue for or against that, right? But yeah, of course, having a big name in your background helps, but it's not everything. Really, your alignment with the skills and needs of the role will be most important, but there's obviously a lot of good tech talent out there right now. With 15 years of experience, my resume is easily 2 pages long. I've trimmed it to 1 page, highlighting just the last 8 years of experience. Is the best approach to let it roll onto 2 pages? 2 pages. The 1 page thing, like, it's dated. It's just very, very dated. 1 page was old school. That's when we had physical resumes, which we don't have anymore. Well, we do, but they're rarely used, right? So the 1 page was so that I didn't have to staple, flip, do all those things. Anybody giving that advice, I'm sorry, it's dated. I've been in recruiting for 20 plus years, and I hated paper resumes. And that's why we recommended 1 page, because we didn't want to have to find a stapler to staple the pages together if we needed to. We didn't want to flip a page. In a scroll, people don't even notice it goes onto a second page. And anybody can argue for a 1 page resume, but I think it's ridiculous. I don't like it. I'm reluctant to apply to one of the FAANGs with most of the layoffs coming from that sector. I reason that if at least I get laid off by my current company, I would have to get a great severance. Well, I mean, again, it's everything in life is, I don't want to go too much into the life coaching, but I'm not a future state person in that I focus on that future state of something potentially negative happening. Like, if you want to go after a big tech role, you should. And if layoffs happen, hey, you have this incredibly strong brand in your background, and that's significant, right? So um, I would just encourage you to still get after it. But of course, I can't control anything in the job market. But I wouldn't be thinking about the future state of you joining that company means layoffs. Just my 2 cents. Thanks, Jeff. I understand orgs will collect resumes for future placement of candidates, but it's tough when you only have X apps per 30-day window. I'm fortunate to have a contact at G to tell me. Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think it is tough. I totally agree with that. It's hard when you're so like regimented in what you can apply for, and I would always just say narrow the focus as much as you can. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for hosting this session. Absolutely. I wanted to ask how long I should wait to follow up after the Googliness interview, or any interview for that matter. 5 business days. Yeah. If you haven't heard back in 5 business days, I would follow up. Gracious and kind. Hey, Bob, just checking in. Hope everything's going well. Wanted to see if there are any updates. Thanks so much. And that's it. And I would keep doing that every 5 business days until I hear back, right? But 5 business days is a great amount of time to give them some distance, but also show a little bit of interest and check in. And just short and sweet, gracious and kind in those follow-up emails. Thanks for your advice. On relocating, any suggestions on where to go? Okay. I'm based in the UK and want to explore opportunities elsewhere. It's a big question. I mean, it really depends, right? So I mean, I like the European market a lot. I just love the accessibility. Maybe it's just because, as an American, like we always we tend to think positively about Europe and the ability to kind of like move around. Obviously, if you're heavily technical or in a tech role, markets like Boston, New York, Austin, the Bay Area, LA, even here in San Diego, Seattle, Boulder, like all those are good tech hubs. Obviously, the Bay is the mecca, and you just can't argue with that. And so, if you really want to thrive in the tech space, being in the Bay is a great place. And one of the reasons that the Bay is so fun and exciting is it's because it's just the intellectual capital. Like, I just loved living up there because you just be out and you just get into such unique and interesting conversations, and just nothing will ever replace that. It's the thing I really miss of all the things about the Bay Area that I miss. It's the people that I miss the most, because you just meet so many unique and interesting people. So always for tech, yes, I always recommend the Bay Area. Of course, it's extremely expensive, but you're in the UK, so you know all about that. Jeff, I have not heard from my SBS. I've not heard, I don't know what SPS is. An RRK interview after a month nearly is game over. My recruiter at Google said the process takes time, but this is worrying me. Okay, so absolutely, your first step is to, at a month now, it's like we just have to have a more transparent conversation with our recruiter, maybe via email, and just say, hey, I just want to understand, like, can you help inform me and provide a little bit more detail about what's going on now? If they are not being responsive, then you want to do this. If it's been a month and they're just not getting back to you, obviously you use this email, google-candidate-support@google.com. But if they are getting back to you, just ask for insight. And sometimes we need to remind recruiters to put themselves in our shoes, right? Just say, hey, you've probably been on the other side, and just the ambiguity is a little challenging. If there's anything else you can share, it would be really, really helpful. I hope that helps. Okay, so we're here. SBS is structured problem solving. Okay, interesting. I've not heard it referred to as that. If they're referring to it as that now, okay. And things are always changing, but problem solving is going to be a critical component of any job interview, whether, regardless of the company. And obviously at Google, they really, really focus and fixate on problem solving. Okay, let's pause. We're out of questions, and of course, I'm here to answer any additional questions. I had a major hiccup. I had to bail off of LinkedIn and reset the YouTube time because I set the live time while I was on the East Coast yesterday, and I'm obviously on the West Coast, so a bunch of hiccups on the time, so it made it a super slow session, but I'm so glad that people were able to show up and engage. I'm going to continue to answer questions, but we're probably going to go into a wrap-up soon, but anything else that's on your mind, throw it out there, please. Thank you so much for the answer. As a follow-up, do you have any advice for a new graduate looking for software engineering jobs? Do you have any tips I could follow to stand out? Yes, and I mean, let's be honest. Like, this is going to be really challenging. The future state of software engineering is super interesting. So how do you stand out? Exceptional communication skills. And it's something that we need to work on. And we just can't truly understand our communication skills unless we put in the work. And so what is that work? What do you want to do? Well, the first thing is practice phenomenal active listening. The next time anybody who's here, and I know we have a small audience right now, practice just doing this. And just building in the space for others. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've gotten a few compliments, and people have said, you're very present. I can tell you're very caring. And I am present. I am caring. But the reason why they said that was because I had good eye contact and I just stopped talking. I listened. There's also a really important tip. It's not a negative thing. It's the 3 nods. Give them 3 quick nods to acknowledge that you're hearing them. But I'm not the type of person when I active listen to speak. I completely go silent and I just give nods occasionally. I give smiles. I'll give a little bit of body language, but I don't like to say, okay, great. Oh, wow. I feel like that interrupts people's speech pattern. So I'm more likely to just sit back and listen. Now, that also depends. Face to face or video, it's easier to see those things. Via phone, you need to check in and say, oh, I hear you. I understand. But that is communication to me is everything and will be the game changer. And if we just actively listen, ask good follow-up questions, and ask them because we're genuinely interested, not to just ask questions, that will set you apart. And you can do that by reading books, just practicing that technique I talked about. There's lots of opportunities. In a 4+ year ago video, you provided a sample LinkedIn message one can use as a cold message, but it seems like many more people are doing this now. Any additional feedback on how to get a more likely response when messaging? David, it's a unique question because my goal really isn't to get a response, right? I mean, yes, it is, but my goal is to get them to like me first before I get a response. So I haven't moved away from the, hey, Sue, came across your background and I found this really cool article on the intersection of program management and AI in your space that I thought I'd share with you. Have a great day. And I just follow that model over and over and over again. Yeah, sometimes at some point we're going to have to poke, we're going to have to ask questions, but being genuine and being unique and sending something really unique to them. It's like, okay, there's program management and the intersection of AI, but what is their specific job? Are you throwing it into GPT and saying, hey, here's Sue's background? And maybe that's the step. I actually haven't really talked about this or thought about this, but are we I'm actually like problem solving for this right now. So this is fun for all of us. So if we gone into GPT, pulled up, pasted in Sue's LinkedIn profile and said, hey, let's source online and find out 5 articles that we think would be really impactful for Sue, read them, and then share one. So that's a new tip. I think I just got a new video idea. So thank you so much for that, David, if I can remember it. But that would be a recommendation. I just love the giving first model. I mean, even today, like somebody gave a really nice shout out to me on LinkedIn, which by the way, if you'll ever do that, I always appreciate it. It really, really helps my business, those shout outs on LinkedIn. And I connected with somebody, and then what's the first thing they do? They send a blurb all about their experience and they send me their resume. I'm not hiring, and there's nowhere anywhere on my profile or anything that I do that says I'm hiring or that I'll take somebody's resume and spend the time looking for a job for them. It's just a very self-serving thing to do, and it doesn't work. And so that's why I love the give first model, David. I know people hate it. It's just a long-term strategy. But I think over time it works. I applied for a Google PM role prior to the pandemic. I didn't get it to round 2. I was engaging with a Google Cloud recruiter. A few years later, I attended an event at G headquarters and networked with a cloud recruiting leader. Which network resource should I reach out to for a new position I'm interested in? And what should I say in the email? I like going through the recruiter first, but there's a strong chance they're not there, or they may not be around. If they are, I like going through them first. And then with the hiring manager, you could say, hey, in the past, I don't know if you remember, we engaged specifically on X. And then that can go, and also like talking to David, that can go to a more specific ask with an attached resume. The other thing that is critical when reaching out to recruiters or hiring managers, if you want to talk to them about a job, you better provide your availability. You better provide the best way to contact you. You better provide why you're a fit. You better provide that link to the role. If you're not taking those actions and those steps, now in a LinkedIn message, we obviously probably can't do all those things. But if I don't know the role you're interested in, why you're a fit for it, the best way to contact you and your availability, there's one roadblock in there. If we give them all those items, there's no roadblocks. Thank you for the feedback and point. David, thank you so much for the engagement again with it's funny running a business. For anybody who wants to do it, you just make a million mistakes, right? You just kind of laugh at yourself, and you just have to laugh at yourself and move on, right? And so the mistakes I made today was setting up this and not thinking about being on the East Coast and that I would set to East Coast time, not West Coast time. It's just something that you got to deal with. But I'm excited that we even got an engaged audience with not being on LinkedIn and me having the wrong time. So thank you. Oh, shoot. And what should I say in the email? Yeah. Again, I want you to focus in on those critical components, but with the hiring manager, if you can reference something very, very specific that you chatted about to make them remember you, that's also going to be helpful. I can utilize our internal jobs boards for roles internationally. However, what else should I be doing to position myself for those roles abroad? Informal coffee chats. Yeah. So Jane Smith is hiring for X role. You reach out to Jane and you say, hey, Jane, we're both at Apple and I've been exploring opportunities in other countries. Here's a little bit more about me. I'd love to set up, I can see your calendar. I'd love to set up a 15-minute informal coffee chat to learn a little bit more about you. That's what I would do. Informal coffee chats are the best, and you'll get, not everybody will be responsive to that, but if it's employee to employee, you're going to have a higher likelihood there. And I just think it's so important that you have a good relationship with your current boss or manager to say like, hey, I'm just want to let you know I'm going to be doing some reach outs, because if they start hearing back from people that you're reaching out about all these roles, that could end up being not a good experience for you. Okay. So again, I want you to tread lightly. You know your current manager or boss better than I do. Thank you so much for being here, and great questions. I think that's supposed to be cool. That's a cool idea. We can build an agent for this that goes out to certain sources, think Medium, TED, and retrieve candidate stuff to send. Then another agent tool to track what and when was sent. Yeah, and again, with AI agents, like, it's just going to be a thing. And again, like, who knows? Everything's evolving and changing so quickly, and we think this is the next thing, but I don't know. But I just think in a world where we can produce AI agents, especially like an AI persona, where personas can speak with each other and kind of understand patterns, understand information, understand connectivity, it's actually going to save us time and create better business and better recruiting. Thanks for being here, as always. Is it considered intrusive to find out a person's company email address and cold message them there directly rather than doing LinkedIn or applying? Well, what's the intent, right? Like, so you're getting that person's email address and then you're cold emailing them a giving model. I don't know. It's very easy to get people's contact information now. It's called Contact Out. That's the best one, I think. You just purchase Contact Out for a month. It's $100 a month, and you can reach out and find. It's pretty accurate. I would say it's definitely like 90% plus accurate on getting email addresses and phone numbers. So you may want to utilize a different strategy there, David. That could be more direct, like a resume, but then I obviously don't love that strategy either. So I would say let's come up with a decision. So I would say start on LinkedIn, and then maybe if it's somebody you're really interested in connecting with and you really want a job with them, then maybe we back it up by emailing them. That would be my recommendation. Okay, everybody. I mean, I feel pretty good about the 53 minutes. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, but if you weren't here, I scheduled it for 9 a.m., but I did it on the East Coast. So it was a 6 a.m. time. So I had to drop off the LinkedIn recording completely because StreamYard wouldn't let me do it. And then it was 6 a.m. and I could see that people had logged in at 6 a.m. So I apologize for that. It's a mistake, and we'll move on. And so thank you, everybody, so much for being here today. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. I do long form videos. I've taken the last couple of weeks off, but every Monday, live, 9 a.m. Pacific time in the US, every Tuesday. Check out app.practiceinterviews.com. We've lowered the price. We've added a ton of stuff. Look, obviously, I have my own opinion. It's the best tool on the market. It's the only tool that's actually breaking down and giving you feedback piece by piece. There is literally no other tool in the world that does that. You're going to get better if you use that tool. And of course, I'm here to help. I do one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, one-on-one strategy sessions. We have our fully blown out interview mastery course, all updated with AI modules. And I have tons of free resources. Go to practiceinterviews.com. We're going to push you in two different directions, towards the coaching, where you can find all those free resources, or towards the app directly. I'm going to answer any last second questions, and then I'm going to hop off. And thank you so much for being here. Quick question. I received an offer via email, and I'm going it over on the phone today. Do I come in with numbers to negotiate, or is this just a time to ask questions because it's the first convo? I think it'd be good to go in with new numbers. Obviously, you always want to understand. So let's just take a step back. The first question you might ask, if this is a smaller company or a company that we don't know if they negotiate, that's your first question. Is this offer negotiable? Because if they say no, okay, now we know. But if you're going after one of the big companies, one of the FAANG companies, it's negotiable and you should be ready to go in with numbers today. But if you don't have that data, um, you may want to ask first, because otherwise it can come across the wrong way. Sharing insights from articles with recruiters is a fascinating idea, but would it potentially lead to diminishing returns? I don't want you to share articles with recruiters. I think they're a waste of time, especially on LinkedIn. I don't do anything with recruiters. This is only hiring manager specific, and I did not state that before. So thanks for this comment. That's only for hiring managers. I don't deal with recruiters at all on LinkedIn. I totally avoid them. I go directly to the hiring manager, and it's not a law of diminishing returns. The returns will be extremely, extremely small, 1%, 2%, 3%, maybe. It's a long-term networking strategy. It's not a short-term strategy. And so we give, and hopefully we get. But it's just a lot of giving, but it's not diminishing returns. It's already basically diminished returns, but it's more effective than just reaching out to people, reaching out to recruiters and hiring managers and sharing a resume. I find that that's less successful. And of course, anybody could argue against that, right? Sometimes you're going to get that hiring manager who's going to look at your resume and reach back out. So there's always an opportunity there. Thanks again, Jeff. I'd highly suggest that people follow the advice on LinkedIn profile optimization, as it helped me be in touch with more humans than not. See you next week. Thank you so much for that, David. I mean, here's the challenge on LinkedIn. If I wanted to, which I don't think I do, because I'm just cooked on LinkedIn. I really don't like the platform that much, but it's got over 1 billion users, so we got to use it, right? But 99.9999999% of people do not have optimized LinkedIn profiles, and it's really easy. It's really easy to optimize your profile, and you just stand out significantly, and you would be shocked. On a weekly basis, I get at least 3 to 5 reach outs from people who tell me they can help with my LinkedIn messaging and LinkedIn reach outs and optimizing my LinkedIn profile. And 100% of the time, I know how to use LinkedIn more than they do. It's just a reality. And that's not an ego thing. That's just people have underutilized LinkedIn. There's so many opportunities there, and it's easy. It takes hours and hours and hours to apply for all these jobs, but to optimize your LinkedIn profile probably takes an hour. So I've done a ton of videos on them. People don't watch them. People don't like optimizing their LinkedIn profile, but people spend a lot of time there, so they should. I think the idea is recruiters who do respond have a positive outlook on you as a candidate relative to others. Yeah. And of course, reach out to as many recruiters as you want. I think it also depends on who you're reaching out to. If you're reaching out to recruiters at Google, no way. Or Apple or any of these elite companies, it's hard to articulate how much you get blown up as a recruiter. I mean, I'm talking like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reach outs per week. And it's all garbage. It's all, here's my resume, find me a job, get me a job at Facebook when I was working at Google. Like, it's just recruiters get so inundated, especially at the elite companies, with so much garbage on LinkedIn, they just stop looking because they simply don't have the time to go through all of it because it's so overwhelming. But smaller companies, maybe it's a good strategy. Liz, have fun. Thanks for being here as always. Yes, thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate it. And like I love this stuff. Like, poke at me, push me, because this is good for the community too. I want the community to be thinking about how creative they're able to get with their reach outs and like who are they reaching out to. It's all really, really important. So thank you so much for the engagement. The engagement is great. We can take this in so many different directions, and I appreciate all the comments. So helpful. PS, on the LinkedIn optimized profile topic, I've actually chosen not to do it because I'm being highly specific about where I want to work next and what I want to do. Yeah, and I don't agree with that, Liz. And of course, I think you feel comfortable enough, I hope, with me to say, like, you don't have to optimize it to be so specific in one lane. but it still needs to be optimized. And I think anything else is just removing opportunities to be found. And so I would optimize it. It doesn't mean you have to say you're open to work or open to certain jobs, but we should be optimizing it with all of our experience, all of our skills, building in media, building in a strong about section, like building in all your portfolio work, building in the apps you're creating. All that stuff should be a part of your LinkedIn profile. It's just going to lead to more interesting conversations. And that's what we want to have. We want to have conversations. We want to engage, and all sorts of unique people find me on LinkedIn. And it's, again, love it, hate it. It's been a unique journey. We hit an hour. I'm shocked based on all my mistakes that I made this morning, but thank you everybody so much for being here. I will be back next Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you so much. Have a great day.